You know the story of Thanksgiving, right? We all learned it in school. Pilgrims and Native Americans sitting down together, sharing a big harvest feast, a story of friendship and peace. But what if that's not the whole story? What if there's a much darker history hiding just beneath the surface?
So, what is the secret behind Thanksgiving? Well, it turns out that behind that cherished story of unity, there's a pretty brutal story of betrayal, of war, and a very, very different reason for giving thanks. And the difference is, well, it's pretty shocking. The story we're taught is all about peace, a shared harvest, gratitude. But the hidden story? That one's about betrayal, celebrating a massacre, and a trophy of a skull. So, how did we get from one to the other? Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Okay, let's set the scene. It's December 1620. The Mayflower drops anchor off the coast of what we now call Massachusetts. You've got about 100 settlers on board, the people we call the Pilgrims. They're looking for a new life, a fresh start. But their beginning in the New Plymouth colony was an absolute disaster. That first winter was just unbelievably brutal. We're talking relentless cold, rampant disease, and they were starving. By the time spring finally rolled around, 50% of them were dead. Think about that. Half of everyone who made that journey was gone. The entire colony was literally on the brink of being wiped out. And then, just when it looked like it was all over, something incredible happens. A man named Samoset just walks into their settlement and starts speaking English. He was a local tribal leader, and he introduces them to the great king of the Wampanoag people, Massasoit. And this alliance wasn't just about peace. It was the key to their very survival. See, the Pilgrims had no idea how to farm in this new sandy soil. Their methods were totally useless. But the Wampanoag taught them this amazing technique, burying fish with the seeds to act as fertilizer. This was a complete game changer. It transformed the useless soil, and suddenly they could grow fields and fields of corn. They were saved.
So, fast forward to the fall of 1621. Thanks to that Wampanoag secret, the harvest is huge. The storerooms are packed. To celebrate, the Pilgrims hold a 3-day festival. And this is the moment we all know, right? The first Thanksgiving. You've got about 50 settlers, and they're joined by 90 Wampanoag, including their king. It looks like a perfect picture of harmony. But here's where the story starts to get complicated. Just a few weeks before this peaceful feast, on August 14th, those same settlers joined a violent raid on another native village. So this big celebration of peace and harvest, it happened in the immediate shadow of a bloody conflict. And that initial alliance, well, it didn't last. Let's jump forward 15 years, to 1636. By this point, that early friendship is a distant memory. More and more English colonists are arriving, they're pushing into new territories, and it leads to a horrific war with another powerful tribe, the Pequot. In one single night, the English colonists attacked a fortified Pequot village. They set it on fire, blocking the exits and trapping everyone inside. 700 people were killed, and we're talking mostly women, children, and elderly men. The entire Pequot tribe was practically annihilated overnight. The commander of the attack, John Mason, later wrote that he believed God had turned the Pequot into a burning oven. And get this, following the massacre, the governor of the colony declared an official Day of Thanksgiving to celebrate the military victory. This is one of the first times we see the term used like this. But the ultimate, most personal betrayal was still to come. And it was aimed at the son of the very man who had saved the Pilgrims, Massasoit. His son, Metacom, who the English called King Philip, could only watch as the colonists took more and more of his people's land, destroying their way of life. He had no choice but to fight back. He led his people in a final, desperate war for their independence. But he lost. He was killed. And what the colonists did next was just unbelievably cruel. They dismembered his body, and they put his head on a spear right outside the settlement his father had saved. And that gruesome trophy didn't just stay there for a day or a week. It was left on display for 25 years. For a quarter of a century, the skull of the son of their original savior was left to rot on a pike as a warning. And once again, to mark the end of the war and the death of Metacom, the colonists declared, you guessed it, another official day of Thanksgiving, a celebration of victory built on the death of their former ally's son. So, How does all of this, the massacres, the betrayals, connect to the holiday we celebrate today with turkey and football? Well, for many people, the story stops with that first peaceful harvest. But for the descendants of the Wampanoag and other native peoples, the story kept going, and its legacy feels very, very different.
It really comes down to two completely different views of the same day. For most of America, Thanksgiving is a federal holiday about gratitude, family, and harvest. But for many Native Americans, it's the National Day of Mourning. It's an annual protest, a solemn day to remember the genocide, the stolen lands, and the destruction of a way of life.
The story of Thanksgiving is not simple. It's messy. It holds both the beautiful idea of gratitude and the brutal reality of conflict. And it leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. How does knowing the whole story, the hidden history, change the way we look at the holidays we celebrate?